Folks, how are we doing? I want to make sure that the audio is fine. So are we good with that?
Good to go.
We are good.
All right then. Certainly glad to hear it. Glad to see all of you on this day. It is a glorious day. But we're here I'm here in the nation's capital, basically looking like a war zone because we've got folk who cannot accept the reality of an election. But and so it goes. That's fine. That's fine if that's the case. But the bottom line is, we certainly want to congratulate Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, graduate of Howard University, who today resigned from the U.S. Senate because she is going to be, of course, sworn in as the next Vice President on Wednesday, and certainly President-elect Joe Biden as well. And so it is a busy time. It is a different MLK Day, obviously, because we're still living in this COVID environment, this COVID world, not being able to, have events in person. That's why we are here having this virtual event as well. But it still did not stop me from wearing the MLK Challenge, a day full of service. And so a lot of people have been out there doing these things. And so we certainly appreciate all the work that they do, all the work that you do as well. But I do want to start this way before I get into the substance of my remarks. I do want us to remember that today is not just about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If you actually go and listen to his speech, we streamed it earlier on Roland Martin Unfiltered. If you go to the YouTube channel of the Nobel Peace Prize and you actually watch his 12-minute speech, he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize on behalf of the movement. He did not accept it on behalf of himself, even though he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He accepted it on behalf of the movement. And when the Mlk Memorial was built in 2000, when it was dedicated in 2011, it was led, of course, by his fraternity. I'm a life member as well, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But I make the point that that memorial, although it's the MLK Memorial, it's not solely about him. And the reason that's important is because if we make it solely about him, then we lose sight of all the other people, ordinary people who did extraordinary things to make the civil rights movement or the Black freedom movement real. And so we must think about on this day, not just celebrating him, but celebrating Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer and Ralph Abernathy and Diane Nash and Septima Clark, Zenona Clayton, Constance Baker Motley, Andrew Young, Reverend Jackson, James Orange, C.T. Vivian, Fred Shuttlesworth. I mean, I can go on and on and on, all the different people who made the Black freedom movement a reality. The folks who were the freedom marchers, the people who were the foot soldiers in Selma, the folks who were in Albany, New York. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. These are all of the people who made the movement real. So I think that's critically important for us to understand that they made it possible. They made it possible for him to do what he did. Remember, he was just a young upstart in Montgomery, Alabama, barely fresh out of grad school, and then he goes there, and then of course they pick him to lead the Montgomery Improvement Association. But there were people who are already there doing the work, and so I just think that a lot of times, again, there's so much energy and focus just on Dr. King that we also lose sight of the other folks out here who did amazing work. People who are still with Murley Everett Williams, who is still with us. Fred Gray, who is still practicing law, 90 years old in Alabama. He was the legal titan behind so many of these things that took place in the movement. And so, I just wanted us to start with that, the framing, if you will, when it comes to this particular day. We are operating in quite a unique moment in time, and the moment that we are operating in is critically important, is because here we now 22 years away from America becoming a nation that's majority people of color. By 2043, we will have a majority Latino, Black, Asian, Native American. But what we've seen since the Black Freedom Movement, we've seen significant progress, but there's a lot more progress that needs to be had. I said earlier that today was the last day for Kamala Harris as United States Senator from California. With her resignation today, there leaves no Black women in the United States Senate. Not one. In the history of the United States Senate, there have only been two. Kamala Harris, of course, and of course, Kara Mosley Braun from Illinois. The reason that is important is to understand is that, so while we are celebrating where we've come to, where we're going, we have to understand that there's still work to do when it comes to political power in this country. There's still work to do when you begin to look at the fact that in the history of America, there's never been a Black woman who's been governor of a state. You've had a couple of sisters who serve as lieutenant governor of the states. I think actually three, I believe. But you never had an African-American woman who's been a governor of a state. And so when we talk about the advancements, and here we are in 2021, the fact that we still are dealing with first is something that's critically important for us to remember. It's important for us to remember that because when we talk about this pursuit of justice, we have to remember that most of the time it's really just us. That when we're talking about fighting on behalf of trying to change this country, it really in a lot of places is just us. I just spent 5 weeks in Georgia, and we committed ourselves to being on the ground in Georgia for the runoff election of Pastor Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. They were in the runoff for the United States Senate. And we committed my show to say, we're going to cover this, we're going to be on top of this, because we understood how important those races were. We understood would mean for policy regarding African Americans if Democrats controlled the U.S. Senate and not Mitch McConnell. We understood that if Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff won, there would be a 50-50 tie in the United States Senate, and then Vice President Kamala Harris would be the tie-breaking vote if there is indeed a tie. And so we were there not because we were there to support Warnock and Ossoff. We were there because we understood that the John Lewis Voting Act could not become law if Mitch McConnell was still in power. The George Floyd Justice Act could not become law if Mitch McConnell was still the one who was deciding whether to bring bills to the floor. We understood that $15 an hour living wage could not become reality if he was still in charge, if he was still in power. We realized, again, what the policy difference would be depending upon who is in charge. Now, let's be real clear. The policies that we're talking about is we are advocating for issues that affect Black folks, regardless of what party is in power. But we understand which one would make it more likely to even call a meeting than those who would likely ignore us. What we've witnessed over the last 4 years has been a policy assault on Black people. Oh, if you want to believe all the drama, oh, how Trump helped HBCUs and completely funded all this sort of stuff, all lies. But we understand the impact of the Affordable Care Act. We understand the difference between an Eric Holder Department of Justice and a Jeff Sessions Bill Barr Department of Justice. We understand with one Department of Justice where they stopped utilizing federal prisons, and another Department of Justice where they reinstated that. We understand the difference between the Eric Holder Department of Justice and then this one where they have executed 12 people since July, 5 people in the last 2 weeks, most of them African American. If you want to talk about justice, go read the statement of Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who ripped the Supreme Court and the Trump administration for this rush to kill people with the death penalty on the federal level when they had not executed anyone for 17 years. Literally, Donald Trump and Bill Barr were rushing to put people to death before 12:01 p.m. on Wednesday. what we need to understand is that when we talk about justice, a lot of times it is just us who is out here battling, who is out here swinging, who is out here doing all of the heavy work and the lifting to make this thing possible. And so we must appreciate the modern day warriors, the Latasha Browns and the Cliff Albrights and the Tamika Mallory with Until Freedom and Linda Sarsour and my son and so many others. Here are people who are out there trying to make the reality of what King and others did and moving it forward to the 21st century. But what this also requires, though, this requires that every single one of us be on the battlefield. Now, some of y'all might say, okay, it requires every single one of us. What do you mean by that? Oh, there are people here who have a great position. There are people here who work for wonderful institutions. There are people here who have great jobs. But the question you must be asking yourself is, how am I using my gifts and my talents to be able to help usher in a new period of justice and to end injustice in this country? I don't mean your corporation buying a table. I don't mean companies posting Black Lives Matter on their social media. What I mean is, do we have individuals who in their everyday lives are using their opportunity to be difference makers? Or do we have folk who I call parking lot militants? See, these are the folk who talk a whole lot of smack in the parking lot. We should be doing this, we should be doing that. Yet when they go inside the building, then they get real quiet. See, we need fewer parking lot militants. We need people to understand that you did not get to where you are today solely because of your skill set, because of your degree, because of your knowledge, because of your relationships. You got there because there were some other folk who put it on the line in order for you to be able to do what you're doing today. See, I understand that. In addition to being a life member of Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, I'm a life member of the National Association of Black Journalists. In fact, I crossed the burning sands of Alpha the same year I joined NABJ. So since 1989, I've been involved in both of these organizations. This year, we celebrated the 40th anniversary of the National Association of Black Journalists. And I know I could not be doing what I'm doing today if those 44 Black journalists did not meet in a hotel room in Washington, D.C., create the organization. But even before that, as somebody who is a member of the Black press, I could not be doing what I'm doing today with Roland Martin Unfiltered if it wasn't for A.I. Scott and the Atlanta Daily World, if it wasn't for Charles Burnett and the Negro Associated Press, if it wasn't for John H. Johnson and Ebony and Jet, if it wasn't for Robert Abbott and the Chicago Defender, if it wasn't for Frederick Douglass and the North Star and Ida B. Wells Barnett, and of course Ethel Payne and Alice Dunnigan and Chuck Stone and Louis Martin and all of these heroes and sheroes in the Black press. So when I am sitting here fiercely and advocating for our people, I am doing it based upon there being a lineage created or a path that was constructed that allowed for me to be able to walk on, and my job is to extend that path forward. And so you must ask yourself the very same question that Dr. King rhetorically asked in Los Angeles when he went to speak there. And he met with a young attorney, Clarence Jones. And he met with Clarence and he wanted Clarence's help. He was told that Clarence could be of use to the movement. Clarence was making very good money as an attorney in Los Angeles, had a very nice house there in Baldwin Hills, and he wanted no part of the movement. And so the next day, Dr. King gave a speech in Los Angeles. And in that particular speech, he challenged the Black elite. He challenged Black doctors and lawyers to use their gifts for the benefit of the movement. Clarence writes in his book, and I interviewed Clarence, and I know him well, and he said it was as if Martin was speaking directly to me and was challenging me to do more. And he said his wife looked at him as a way of saying, you know, Doc is talking to you. And so I'm saying all of this right now because there is somebody who is watching. There's somebody who is saying, you know what, I'm good. I'm doing enough. But are you really doing enough? Is your membership and your membership dues, is that truly enough? Are you using your gifts and talents to usher in a new generation? Are you using your gifts and talents to challenge the respective companies you work for to go bigger and bolder and not simply be accepting? And let me be real clear. It's a whole bunch of companies out here who are getting off on these diversity awards and how they are a top company for diversity. And if we really want to be honest, most of those awards are BS. Most of those awards have been purchased as a result of folk buying tables and sponsoring events. But how are they being different? See, I'm talking about you must be challenging your companies in a way that goes beyond just a few minor appointments. What I'm talking about is not just Black boards of directors, not just Black senior executives, not just Black direct reports, not just Black junior executives, not just Black mid managers, but you must challenge them saying, where are we putting our money? Is our money being placed in Black banks? Are we utilizing Black advertising agencies? Are we taking out ads and investing in Black media? How are we truly supporting the infrastructure and the ecosystem that Black America is built on? And I'm talking about being real. I'm saying challenging your multi-billion-dollar companies by asking them, are we a part of the billion-dollar club when it comes to minority supplier development? I'm talking about challenging, and see, I'm not, and there's no disrespect to internships and entry-level jobs. But see, I don't want us to get played by folk who are very good at offering those small things and for us to sit here and go, ooh, that's it. No. I can go beyond just saying we recruited at an HBCU. I want to know, are they setting up centers in HBCUs? What are they actually funding? I'm talking about long-term, deep ties. See, that's what I'm talking about. See, we have to be willing to challenge folk in a different way. And I know there are some people who say, well, I don't understand. The title of this is called In the Presence of Justice. That's your theme. But do understand, one of the greatest mistakes that we make as Black people is if we only define justice when it comes to the criminal side. See, one of the things that I've noticed in my career is that when we have these conversations, white America is perfectly comfortable with us talking about social justice. They're fine with us talking about criminal justice. But folk get real uncomfortable. We start talking about economic justice. Let me explain something to all of y'all that you may not realize. There's lots of discussion with regards to Silicon Valley and the lack of investment of venture capital dollars in Black and other minority There's a whole lot of conversation. But have you asked yourself, where do the venture capital dollars come from? Where do the private equity dollars come from? So allow me to unpack this thing for you. Here we are trying to change a system here. We need y'all here to invest more here. But the money comes from here. Some of y'all may be saying, hold up. How can the money come from here, but the money is up here? Unpack it. Most of your venture capital dollars and your private equity dollars is coming from pension funds. Who really are the largest investors on Wall Street? Pension funds. What are pension funds? Well, you have private pension funds, but your biggest dollars are coming from public pension funds. Okay, so what are public pension funds? City, county, state, federal employees. City, county, state, federal employees. So you mean to tell me that the venture capital dollars in Silicon Valley are really being fueled by the people who are teachers, police officers, firefighters, workers of city, county, state, federal government? The answer is yes. One estimate put that 45 to 48% of all federal pension dollars are Black and brown. Similar numbers on county, state, county, city. That means that your mama or your daddy or your uncle or your aunt or your cousin, your friend, your church member, your fraternity brother or sister, their friends and families or themselves, they are the ones who are actually fueling the investment in Silicon Valley. And see, here we are trying to knock down the door to get these white folks up here with their very few Black people, let's just be honest, very few, to invest in Black and brown companies using the very dollars of Black and brown people. I'm gonna let that sit right there for a second. We are begging white folks at the top to invest the very money that has come from Black and brown people into companies of Black and brown people. See, the activism has to be there. See, what that means is, what has to happen is, we've got to have folk who lead organizations such as this to be intermediaries in going to these companies and challenging them. So take, for instance, let's just say, we're having a conversation. We're having a conversation with the venture capitalist. And there's a meeting, and we're sitting with that venture capitalist. And we then begin to say, before the meeting, where did they get their money from? Meaning, the money that this venture capital went out and raised, where did it come from? And then you ask that next question. Okay, what state pension did it come from? And then you ask the question, what's the makeup of that state pension? So now we go into the meeting and we're having an economic justice meeting. What we really are saying is we're actually here to reclaim what is already ours. We are here to reclaim what is already ours. Congresswoman Maxine Waters said, reclaiming my time. I dare say today's theme should be reclaiming what's ours. See, I want us to look at this thing totally different. I want us to be able to walk in and say, yes, we're seeking this level of investment in this company. And let me just remind you, the dollars that you have received to be able to invest, those are Black and brown pension dollars. And what has to happen is we need organizations today mobilizing our organizations to then organize our people. I have given this speech different places, and I would ask the number of people who have worked in public sector to stand up, and sometimes 75 to 80% of the room stands up. And I said, do y'all understand that the richest group of Black people in America are public workers because of their pension? This, folks, is about reclaiming what is ours. In technology, Black people, not just technology, but in everything. For lack of a better phrase, we make shit sexy. Clubhouse. All of a sudden, the app Clubhouse has taken off because of Black people. Go on there and look at who's leading the conversations. Go on there and look at who's driving the conversations. Go on there. We make shit sexy. We sell stuff. We sell brands. We make them hot. Black entertainers, Black singers, Black rappers, Black athletes. That's what we do. But now is the time, but we should be now asking, okay, but hold up. How much of those firms actually giving to Black media? See, I'm about reclaiming what's ours. Joe Biden ain't president. Kamala Harris ain't vice president without Black people. So ask yourself, why does the federal government spend $1 billion annually on media advertising, and Black media only gets 10 million out of the 1 billion? Ask yourself, why is it? And then this was documented by a man, Brett Pulley, in his book, The $1 Billion Bet, the unauthorized biography of Bob Johnson and BET. When Sumner Redstone and Viacom purchased Black Enterprise Television, they discovered that BET was getting $1,500 for $1,500 per a 30-second ad. And the exact same ad that was running on MTV was getting $8,000. Same ad, $1,500 on BET, $8,000 on MTV. So when BET was sold for $3.3 billion, if you actually do the math, had BET been getting its real number, its fair share, BET should have been sold for $10 billion. But we were getting 22 cents on the dollar. Y'all hear that? we were getting 22 cents on the dollar. This is about reclaiming what is ours. See, I'm not about sitting here being real nice to some folk and asking. Right now, we're dealing with a COVID crisis. Ask yourself this question. How is it that we are lagging badly when it comes to Black folks getting vaccinated? Now ask yourself, how much money is about to be spent on COVID awareness and how much money is that going to Black people? And let me be real clear. I'm not talking about Black targeted media. I'm talking about Black owned media. See, it's real easy to keep funding Black targeted media, but that means you ain't funding Black people. That means you funding Black. What you're really funding is Black face media. Uh-oh, that might hurt some people's feelings, but I really don't care. Where we are, if we are going to truly be difference makers, if we are truly going to change the game, then we must be fierce economic justice warriors. If you really study Dr. King, and I mean, you got to go deeper than listening to the bottom part of his I Have a Dream speech. That means you got to go deeper than listening to the last 2 minutes of his mountaintop speech. If you want to understand what it means to be a fierce economic justice warrior, listen to the full 43-minute and 16-second mountaintop speech where Dr. King lays out an economic agenda. Folks, what we are dealing with right now is a need for this generation of people to be fierce economic justice warriors, to be going, we basically have, look at yourself as you have been able to infiltrate white universities. You have been able to infiltrate major corporations. Now, what are you going to do while you're there? What are you going to do while you're sitting at the table? And if you're one of these folks and you're just so happy to be there, that means that you are going to be a Negro in corporate America who leaves no footprints or no footprints. In order for you to be a fierce economic justice warrior, that means you are going to have to make a decision. And that is, are you going to be present or are you going to have presence? Are you going to be present or are you going to have presence? Are you going to make this about more than you getting a paycheck? Or are you going to make this truly about the collective? I'm all for all of us making the most money that we can. I am all for us building up our personal economic war chest. But more than one of us can eat. More than one of us can build. We don't have to fall for the white supremacy of there being the only one, the sole one. No, more than one of us can eat. More than one of us can benefit. More than one of us can sit at the table. See, so if you are Black in Silicon Valley, and if you say, man, it's lonely at the top, that's actually your fault because you haven't brought somebody else with you. See, if you really were about the business of our people, you would say, I might be the only one today, but I'm not going to be the only one for long. And then when you bring up that next one, you then tell them you got to bring up somebody too. See, there should not be any one of us saying is lonely at the top. Change the condition of where we are. You got to make a decision. Am I going to be present or will I have presence? Having presence means you are all about the impact. You are challenging systems. You are challenging the way of doing business. And you're not accepting any excuses from the very people. And when they say, I think you're trying to go too fast. No, y'all have been going too slow. This is a moment for every single one of us to truly be difference makers. And I would hope, and this is my last point, I would hope that 30 years from now, we are not having an MLK Day celebration and we are solely referencing Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Septima Clark and Ella Baker and Ralph Abernathy, Hosea Williams and Andrew Young and James Orange. This is the moment right now where Black folks today should be saying, we're going to do our part. So 30 years from now, they're reciting our names. What you do today is about legacy. What you do today will determine what they say about you tomorrow. If you say nothing today, do nothing today, then they will not be talking about you tomorrow. That means in your work life, you were simply present. They called your name and you said here. That's present. Presence. Presence is when you've long left the company and when they call your name, folks start remembering all the stuff you did. If all they ever say is he used to work here or she used to work here, that means you were simply present. But if they call your name and then they're able to recite the stuff that's still in place and you have been gone, that means you had presence. That is legacy. There are people today who come up to me to tell me what I said and did on CNN. Y'all, I've been off of CNN 8 years in April. I have been gone 8 years in April. That's called presence. When I look at the people who I put on TV first, who are now on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all these networks, it's called presence. This is a moment for this generation to rise up. This is a moment for this generation to reclaim what is ours. This is the moment for this generation to become fierce economic justice warriors. Now you have to decide, leaving here, what am I going to do? Will I be present or will I simply have presence? Thanks a bunch.